So I want to share with you a story from the Reverend Rebecca Ann Parker. And she wrote an essay called "The Struggle to Inhabit My Country, Not Somewhere Else But Here." And it's in a book called Anti-Racist Theologies in Dialogue. And she's a white woman. She's traveling on a road trip to go back to seminary. And on her road trip, she's with a friend, and they're driving across the plains, and there's some weather on the horizon, and there's all these signs that say, "Stop, flood ahead." And they are in the car together, and they're like, wow, there must have been a flood here. But they keep on driving. So they keep on driving. The rain is still coming. They continue to see signs that say, "Stop, flood ahead." But they continue to keep driving. Wow, gosh, they must have had a really big flood here. Do you see where this is going? So they find themselves crossing a bridge where the water is rising just over the bridge, and they're like, gosh, there must have been a flood here. Yeah, there must have been a flood here. And then they keep going until suddenly, what do they find themselves in? A flood. They do. So they tried to back up in their vehicle, but of course they can't. They have to jump out of the vehicle and make a run for higher ground. And she says this: "We were baptized into the present, a present from which we had been insulated by both our car and our misjudgment about the country we were traveling through." She says, this is what it's like to be white in America. It is to travel well ensconced in a secure vehicle and to see signs of what is happening all around outside the compartment one is traveling in and not realize that these signs have contemporary meaning. It is to be dislocated, to misjudge your location and believe you are uninvolved and unaffected by what is happening in the world. If we were to take her metaphor beyond whiteness to say, what is it like to grow and be in America? And we imagine that we are all born into the flood of the moment. Here you are. You arrive on scene into a world that was not of your making. You are born into a river of other people's consequences. You did not choose any of it. Here you are, cultures, histories, wars, harms, and healing, all flushing and flowing over you. The moment you are born, you never had a say, unless you have a theology that tells you you did. But you never had a say, right? We are born into the consequences of each other's lives constantly. But we live in a world that says that's not true. We live in a world that says you're an individual who has total control over their own lives, and you must have made a mistake. Clearly, it was all your fault. We're born into a culture of what I'd call evasion of responsibility. We are born into a culture where we can say, it wasn't me. Wasn't me, I didn't do it. My ancestors didn't do it. I didn't physically do it. We like to evade responsibility. We're born into a culture where we say, I didn't mean to. It wasn't my intention to do that. And because it wasn't my intention, it doesn't matter if you were hurt or impacted by it. If it wasn't my intention, then it doesn't matter that you're hurt. Clearly, it's not my responsibility. We're born into a culture that says, well, let me tell you all about me and my suffering. Have you seen my car in the flood? My car's already been there. We are born into a culture where we're taught, oh, but if I can show you how I've been hurt, then we don't really need to think about how you've been hurt. All of these are ways we try to get out of the river. These are all ways where we have been born into so many relatedness. And we try to say, well, that wasn't me. That wasn't my fault. That wasn't my people. That wasn't my ancestors. That wasn't my history. But here we are in the river together. Now, if we want to be a people who are transformers of this world, if this house of the holy is the place we learn to do something different than that, then the new skill we have to learn is not how to get out, but how to get in. The new skill we have to learn is how to stay in the waters, to say yes to the baptism of other people's lives. It's our task not to try to jump out, stay dry, prove we didn't do it, prove I don't have to fix it, prove it wasn't me. Our task is to say yes. That too is me. Yes, I see myself in what just happened there. Yes, I look for the ways that I am part of that. Yes, if I believe in interdependent web of relationships of which we are all a part, then you have to take collective responsibility seriously. When I was working in Montana with a friend on a group called Rural Race Dialogues, we worked with white majority or white completely Christian organizations in Montana on the work of what does it mean to be white in Montana today. While we were working, we reflected on the history of some of the peoples in the room who remembered their grandparents immigrating to the United States with joy. Wow, the decision they made. Wow, what they did for me. And through our work together, a slow realization creeps over them. Wait a second. They were German Lutheran. Through assimilation, they became white. There was cultural loss. The process of cultural loss is not a choice. It is a process of coercion and survival. And then through cultural loss, what does it mean about the grandmother I loved? One woman there, 70, remembers her grandmother speaking German, and then suddenly one day, no longer doing that. For what reason, she didn't know. But we can guess now, can't we? That the very thing that would have kept her family alive, music, her tongue, her sense of holy relatedness to ground, her knowing of her land, her knowing where her own ancestors are buried, all of that goes away when you suddenly enter this particular country and this particular history of race. So she asked us, what do we do? Do I look back at my grandmother with anger and sadness at her choice to let go of who she was? Or do I continue with the story that it was a marvelous choice, this America, all freely given? The task is this: get in the river. Yes, your grandmother, when she came to the United States, made a choice with a dream. Yes, she showed up and had a plan for you. Yes, when she was here, it was difficult because this country did not want difference. It wanted similarity. Yes, when she showed up on land she felt entitled to. Yes, she stepped on the land that was someone else's grandmother's. Yes, it was someone else's. Yes, we are in it now. Let us be a people who get in the river. Each of us holding the stone you walked in with. I imagine that mother, that grandmother in Montana, with the truth of who she thought she was tightly wrapped around her stone. Our task is to unclench the hand and to make room for more pieces. We can do that together. May we show up to the task. In the spirit of that, we want to offer you a version of joys and sorrows. Each week, we practice joys and sorrows, a moment when we reflect to each other the ways our lives have been rippling and impacted in the world. But today, we're dedicating our joys and sorrows to our collective impact. Your invitation is this: we mark today's water with salt. We mark this water with salt to know that we come from a larger culture that would love for us to avoid responsibility. We mark this water to acknowledge the grieving and the accountability that is still required of us. We will invite each of you with your stone, beginning from this side of the room and coming up this way as you walk forward, to place your water and your stone in the bowl. But we invite you to do it in a particular way as you get up out of your seat. As you're walking, I invite you just to notice what you're feeling in the room today, having heard what you've heard or having heard what I've said to you. Notice what you're feeling as you approach our water. Then when you put your water in the bowl, or when you put your stone in the bowl, I invite you to notice how many other stones there are, that we choose collective responsibility, not just individual responsibility, that we open ourselves to more truths than just our own. And then I invite you, as you drop your stone, let your fingers touch the water. Let that be a symbol of getting in the river. Let it be a symbol of being touched by the world. And as you walk back, although I know sometimes it's awkward, let yourself look at each other. To know that when we take collective responsibility, we do not lose relationship. We get deeper relationship. So please join us as Susan plays to bring your stone forward, to notice your feeling, to drop your stone into the bowl, to notice other stones, and to notice each other as you return to your seat.